Hey fam, it's the Better Man podcast. We are helping men win. Speaking of winning, I want to talk about our two partners, our two sponsors that help make this show go. One is Aroga Drive. When I'm looking for day in and day out energy to keep this motor going, Aroga Drive is the one. Check them out at arogadrive.com/BetterMan. It's in the show notes. And then also our guys at Art of Homage, engaging culture in a winsome, and I'm going to tell you, a strong vibe. And if you go to the Art of Homage website, link is in the notes, we've got a code for 15% off. Just put in BetterMan15.
Beautiful thing about kids is they should be a positive outcome of a great marriage relationship, and not perfect, but great, where God is refining her, refining you, and you guys are focused on creating great offspring for the glory of God.
What's happening, Better Man fam? Welcome to the Better Man podcast. As usual, here with my man D. D, how you living today?
Man, I'm living. We are doing an episode with one of my favorite people, good friend, Courtney Walker. I'm pumped up about today.
I can't
Let's go.
wait.
Been friends since 05.
05?
05.
That's 20 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
You more than friends after 20 years.
Yeah, that's my guy.
You brothers at that point, my
100.
man.
100.
Manny Fernandez, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, man. Blessed to be here. Always blessed. I love talking with you guys, and I'm excited about our guest today. So
Come on, tell us real quick what's going on at WorldLink.
yeah, right now at WorldLink, we are prepping for the fall semester kickoff. We've got 1,700 church planters around the world that are going and planting churches and reaching their area for the gospel. I'm super excited. I'm going to Central Asia. And I'll be with a bunch of our guys in Central Asia. And so it's actually, there's parts of Central Asia that it's super scrutinized and super close to the gospel. And so you got to be careful in different areas where you're at. So I'll be in Central Asia.
Man, we'll be praying for you. You can always check out more about WorldLink in the show notes. But the man of the hour,
Yeah, man.
Doctor, the good doctor,
Yeah.
Dr. Courtney Walker is in studio today. Doc, man, how you living?
I'm
How you
good,
doing?
man. I'm good, man.
Come on, what's good? Tell me what's good about life.
It's an honor to be here, man. Hey, just enjoying the wife and the family, enjoying the summer. Been extremely busy this summer, and with baseball and volleyball and all the balls, swimming,
Come on,
and dancing. So our kids' activities, but it's so fulfilling, man, because it's I'm seeing I think I'm now in the season of life where I'm seeing the outcomes of just the investment in family.
Come on.
And so it's just been a real blessing. That's the way I see it. I see all of that as outputs of God's faithfulness to some decisions made years ago.
yeah.
And hopefully we'll get to talk a little bit about some of that today.
Oh, we're going to talk about that because I need that because I want to punch my kids in the throat. Because that's the season I'm in right now. So I'm gonna need your help.
Hey man, it's all good. It's all about the
No children were harmed in the making of this.
And, I'm in the medical field, and it's all about outcomes. It's all about health, right? So when you take medication, I've been a pharmacist for 20-some years. My doctorate's in pharmacy, and when you take medication, it's all about getting a positive outcome, feeling better. And the beautiful thing about kids is they should be a positive outcome of a great marriage relationship, and not perfect, but great. Where God is refining her, refining you, and you guys are focused on creating great offspring for the glory of God.
Dude, I love positive doesn't have to mean perfect.
No.
I love that.
I think that's important.
Come on.
Because some people, because they're not perfect, they just bow out completely.
That's right.
But really it's about, pressing to do the very best you can for the glory of God, and using some type of outline. And that's why BetterMan is such a blessing, because it provides men with an outline to help them. But the outcome, man, it's beautiful when you start to see the results in your kids' lives. So
Yeah, and I'm pumped about today's show because we are going to talk about the family,
absolutely
about the household, which I believe has been number one on Satan's hit list.
Absolutely.
Satan knows if he can wreck the home,
Yeah.
he can wreck churches. If you
Yep.
can wreck churches, you destroy cities. If you destroy cities, you destroy nations. As a matter of fact, all the turmoil right now in our country, I bet I could trace it back to the destruction of the home.
Yeah.
To the destruction of the home, man. And for you to be here talking about that, I've watched you personally for almost 10 years now, and I know you're a godly husband. I know you're a positive dad, not perfect, but positive,
I
man.
need to pick up my shoes, man.
I've seen how you've led in the home, man, and now to be experiencing some of those positive outcomes is so good because there are a lot of dads who watch our show, a lot of husbands who watch our show, man, and they're struggling.
Yeah.
They're struggling, man. So as far as your home goes, what are some principles? What are some values you're instilling in your home that are producing that positivity today?
And why is that important to you?
Yeah.
I think it's good to know why that's important to you.
Well, in order to get there, can I go back to the beginning just a little bit?
Bro, we
Because I
flash
think-
back. We all about
Let's go
flashback.
all the way back.
I love the shows with the flashbacks.
We take it
the
back.
flashbacks are so important. So I grew up
To the 99, 2000.
in the country. I grew up in the
We
country.
need to go further back than 99, 2000.
in Arkansas, and single parent mom. My mother and my father met at Arkansas State University. Had me. I grew up with my grandparents. Grandmother loved Jesus. Now, I mean, not just loved the Lord, loved Jesus with a passion. Lived it out. And that always had a huge impact on me. Gave my life to Christ when I was 11 years old, but lived carnally for about 7 years. Didn't know my father up until 5 years old. I thought that he was dead. And he came back in my life in the form of a Nintendo in 1987, which was good, bro, because I was the coolest kid in the country. Mike Tyson's Punch Out, Tecmo
That's the
Bowl.
one, man.
Come on, man. It's,
He said
Super
Mike
Mario
Tyson.
Brothers.
Super Mario Brothers.
Bro, he on a different level. He said Mike Tyson punch.
Mike
out.
Tyson's
Oh,
Punch
yeah.
Out, baby. When I
That's
beat Tyson, it was, I was the dude. So, but carnal Christianity was really what my faith was about for about 7 years. And when I got to be a freshman in college, I met young people who were serious about their relationships with Christ, loved the Lord. And I really connected. Once I gave my life to Christ, that was going to tie me into fulfilling God's purpose and plan for my life. Because when I was a sophomore in high school, I knew I wanted to be a pharmacist. I saw a pharmacist counseling a patient. I worked in Winn-Dixie grocery store. Y'all know nothing about Winn-Dixie.
Come on, I do.
Oh, you do? Okay. All right. That's right. I worked in Winn-Dixie. It was a great grocery store, and I saw a pharmacist counseling a patient, and I was like, that's what I'm supposed to do. Well, what happened was, I was really immature, and I was living in the flesh. I was living for myself when I got into college, and I had a terrible grade point average, and the Lord confronted me with the fact that in order to really to get myself on course, I needed to surrender my life over to Him. And as a man, when I did that, I really found out that there was the connection to fulfilling God's plan and purpose and what manhood was really all about. About energized manhood, God being my source, my nourisher, my sustainer. That's what Father meant. Those three things: source, nourisher, sustainer. Source, meaning everything that I need, I get from Him. Nourisher, that which I needed to survive, He gave. And then when I feel like giving up, the Lord provides what I need to keep me going through fellowship, brothers in the Lord, and other resources the Lord provides. And that's when my life changed. And that's when I wanted to be a husband, to be a father, because I knew that there was aspects that was the highest echelon of manhood. Husband and father. It's not doctor, because I have that title, but that's not my highest title. My greatest title is husband and father.
Come on. And that's something that needs to be said today. I mean, let's be honest, you don't hear a lot about that. You certainly don't hear that from culture, that the highest achievement for a man is husband, is father. Yet when we look through the history of scriptures, that's exactly what it was.
Absolutely. 100%.
That's exactly what it was.
Well, I think it's easy to tie your identity to what you do. And sometimes outside of your home, you probably get more credit for what you do at work.
Yeah.
And your identity is,
That's true.
tied up into that.
That's right.
So
And it's also sometimes easier to see the success in places like the marketplace.
right, because in the home, the success that we want to see takes time.
Come on.
In the work, you make one big sale, and you know
You
your
got
big bang hang.
Yeah.
But I think that's why the title of this discussion, Men Want It, is so important, because when I looked at Want It was about, man wanted, dead or alive. Remember?
Yeah, that's it.
A position of authority says that I want this guy. And what a lot of men don't understand is there's a tug of war between the enemy and between God for the attentions of their heart.
Yeah.
And so what we're talking about today is so very important, is because you can have the money, you can have the accoutrements, you can have all that stuff, but if you don't really understand God's plan and purpose for your life and how it ties into a family, and ensuring that they, with every moment your kids have an achievement, it speaks to, man, you know what I'm saying? The investment is paying off,
Yeah.
Hey, Court, just as I'm listening to your story as well, there's a question that's coming up in my mind, which I don't know if we will be able to quantify this, but just thinking about so many guys who are living for themselves right now. They're carnal Christians right now. Have you seen any effect of when you lived before, the way you were living, on your marriage and on your being a father? And just I'm thinking about the need for a good foundation, but we don't always put that together. We're like, well, God changed my life, and then now I'm doing this and this and that, but we don't talk about the effect that the earlier part of our life might have on our marriage.
That's such a great question, Manny, because what I distinctly remember is that when I gave my life to Christ, the Lord took me through a season of incubation.
Yeah. Okay.
I went to live in an apartment when I was going to pharmacy school, and I was by myself, and the Lord told me, you're going to be in this place by yourself, and I'm going to develop you. And that was the time for discipleship.
Yeah.
And the first part of this discussion I think is so important, because it's really about the man. And I think that's what you're asking about. So in that season, I wasn't dating, I was single. I was actually single for 11 years before I met my wife. And it was intentionally, because I was so immature. I was very, I probably would have been very immature if I got married younger. So that season of singleness was really important. Now, when I got married finally, you're right, there was a transition period, because I had to realize there was a process of God choking out the selfishness in me.
Yeah.
There was progressive, and once I got married, I was like, ooh, okay, I can't just think for myself anymore. I got to think about her. Then we got a dog. I had to think about a dog. And the dog really helped get ready for kids, So I think every man is in the process of having the selfishness squeezed out of him, so that he can focus his attentions on covering a woman, covering his wife, and surrendering to the Lord at the same time, and then ultimately covering his kids. So I went through that process and had to learn a lot about myself.
So what I hear you saying, and I'll just wrap it up with this, but what I hear you saying is we lose time. We miss out on life that we could be living if we don't stop messing around, or if we stop messing around when we're younger, and we actually start investing in the Lord and preparing for marriage, preparing for being a father.
Yes, absolutely.
If we do that younger, then we don't miss out on life later on.
Personal development, man. Personal development. Like, a lot of I've heard that toys are temptations of youth, and when you're young, if I spend all of my time playing video games, or all of my time hanging out with the fellas, or all of my time doing what's just for me, then I miss out on the personal development that God is really trying to have in my life, so that when I become a father, when I become a husband, I'm ready.
Yeah, young men need to hear that today, because just because you get married doesn't automatically make you a husband.
Yeah.
No.
You're training to be a husband. And I love what you said, Dr. Walker. You said that season of singleness you spent preparing.
Absolutely.
So many people waste the singleness.
Yeah.
They waste the singleness. They look at it as a season of splurging, or a season to what do they say?
Sow the
Sow
wild
the
oats.
wild oats. You
Yeah.
know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you used it as a season of training. So for all of our young men that are listeners, and maybe even older men who are still single, man, what you're sowing right now is what you're going to reap in your marriage later.
Absolutely, 100%.
Reap as a parent later.
Right.
Reap at XYZ. Like you've got to be tilling the ground now if you're expecting a harvest then.
Yeah, and what's so important about it is when you think about women and God calling them to submit to our leadership, that's a hard situation for a lot of ladies, right? It's hard for all of them, right?
Come on, he talking about headship now. Here we go.
But when you submit to a man that doesn't have your best interest at heart, it's even harder.
That's right.
It's even harder. So my wife, what I have to do is realize she has to sit in the chair of my leadership. And my chair has to be sturdy enough to hold her up.
Come on.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're doing, Manny, to your question, is spending that time singleness and preparing to be a sturdy chair so she can sit down comfortably.
Yeah.
And it's not about perfection. And I've learned a lot we've been married almost 20 years, praise God. We're right at 18 years, been together 19 years. And I've learned a lot in that period of time. And still working on it, and learning a lot about myself. Manny, one thing I realized is the relationship that I had with my mom, I had to really dig into setting up healthy boundaries because I was the only child, so that I could make sure I honored my mother's relationship, but also honor my wife as well.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of men have to do. And she had to realize, her relationships with her parents added to that as well. Yeah. And so it's just the healthy work that I think you do in order to create a not a perfect family, but a family where you can work and see the development of your children in a great way where they can go forward and be healthy and be fruitful and multiply, which was the first command.
I love what you're saying with the I love this idea of the chair that we're prepping ourselves for our wives to sit on this chair of leadership. Is just such a great thing because it makes me think there's so many things that weaken the foundation of our life that we do on the front end. So there's so many guys that I know, to your point where you were saying that they think going into marriage, that'll cure my issues with lust. No. And that'll cure my, my pursuit of sexual things. It'll be fine because I'll have sex in marriage and I'll be all good. But it's like you bring that baggage into marriage, whether it's lust, whether it's anger, whether it's pride, whether whatever, then that's going to weaken everything. And then you're not propping her up. And then, I just, not to take the analogy so far, but I mean, it's crazy to me how important it is prior to marriage and prior to being a dad, how much I've got to work ahead of time if I want it to be amazing, if I want it to be fulfilling. And that's just life. Sorry.
And that's why discipleship is so important.
Yes.
Because most men don't know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I met Courtney at the end of those 11 years. I think when you and I met, you and Jocelyn got married maybe a year to a year and a half later.
Yes.
And so when I first met Courtney, he was so prepared. And he can tell you, I said, man, who is this dude?
Yeah.
Is this baby Jesus? And I literally asked that question.
He called me Jesus Jr., Chris.
Jesus
He called me
Jr.
Jesus
Right,
Jr.
right. I just didn't know of any young men who were so dedicated to their relationship with Christ. I didn't know anybody like that. And then he was from a small country town just like me. It's interesting. Our wives call us Country 1 and Country 2. I mean, that's how well we get along. But during that period of time, I often refer to Courtney as that guy who taught me about biblical masculinity. I didn't know there was a separate masculinity. All I knew was being a man, what that looked like, what I was taught, chasing women, chasing money, the whole nine. When I met Courtney, he sat me down and said, Delario, God has a purpose for your life, just like he just said. And then he walked me through what that looked like. So, dude, and I've told you this, you have been an inspiration. You've been a great leader. You've been a great brother. You've been a true discipler. So, man, yeah, it's good to sit here and have this conversation in public.
Well, it goes back to what we say at BetterMan. You can't become what you can't define.
Yeah.
There are so many men out there. You know, you can't become a good husband if you don't know what it means to be a good husband if you've never seen one. Yeah. You can't become a good dad if you don't know what it means to be a good dad, right? So Dr. Walker, if I had to ask you, man, in your words, tell us what it means to be a good family man, a good husband, a good father. Like, what are the key components of being a godly family man?
I think number one is a healthy relationship with the Lord, where He's first and foremost, where you love Him. It's not just about going to church on Sunday. It's like, I love God. You know, I love the Lord, man. One of my favorite scriptures is in Titus chapter 3, where it says, "And the grace of God that appears to all men teaches us to say no to ungodliness." Right? It's like I have a realization that God has been so good to me. He's been so gracious to me. Even in Delario's statements, it's all the grace of God. You know, what he said about me, like God's grace got me to the place in that life, in that season of life, to be an influence in him, on his life. And he's an influence to me now because he took the baton and he ran with it. And he's ran with it in such a way that it makes me so blessed, you know, because it was worth it, right? So number one, healthy relationship with God and seeing yourself the way He sees you, not the way the world sees you, but seeing yourself the way the Lord sees you. And then aspiring for His absolute best. What is God's plan and purpose for my life? Mine was to be a pharmacist. Like I love helping people get better medicinally, making sure that they're as healthy as possible, removing barriers to ensure everybody can reach their full health potential. That's all cultures, specifically ones that have vulnerable patient populations. So I have a passion for the African-American community, Hispanic community, the Asian community, because there's different nuances, but then also to my Caucasian brothers and sisters as well, because there's just so many things that we can be doing better. But I'm passionate about pharmacy and about medicine. So, and I think that's important because every man needs to be passionate about something. What is your something? Your something might be janitorial services, you know, and you can be a successful janitorial worker for the glory of God because you got 7 or 8 buildings that you service and you do extremely well, right? Whatever it is, you know. So I think that's important. And then I love the book, John Eldridge, Wild at Heart, where he talks about a man has to have 3 things: a battle to fight, an adventure to live out, and a beauty to rescue. The adventure, and what's interesting is when he says the adventure to live out, the woman on the other hand his wife spoke and said, if I'm the point, then I can get bored with that. What's the adventure that you're gonna take her on, man? Yeah. What's the adventure of your life that you're gonna take her on? You know, like, babe, like, get ready to ride this roller coaster because we about to go. And if you
clarify the roller coaster walk.
The roller coaster, brother, is like, hey, man, look, I don't know what God is going to do, but He's going to do some big things, and we about to ride.
We going to go upside down.
We going to go outside. It can't just about her. It can't just be about her lips, hips, and fingertips, right? Because she'll get bored with that, right? If it's just you know, and to Manny's point earlier, if it's just about lips, hips, and fingertips, you'll get bored, and that's how you get in the flesh, because the basis of your relationship is just the flesh.
You get in trouble when you get bored.
You get in trouble when you're bored. And so a lot of guys get in trouble because, man, what's the adventure of life you're taking her on? Yeah. What are you doing, man? If you tell her, look, I got a vision that, let's go back to janitorial services. I want to be in 7 different buildings. I want to have my own staff, and I want to do that in 10 years. She'll be like, well, how are we going to do it? We're going to trust the Lord to do it. And that'll make her excited. Or to my brother's point, I want to go to Asia. I want to go to other countries for the gospel. And you're getting her excited about getting her mind thinking, how can she help you in doing what God has put in your heart to do? So I think that's important purpose. And then when you have kids, seeing their potential. I think my responsibility as a husband is to, you know, my wife and I, we prayed for each of our kids as they were born. Lord, show us what their bend is, what their gifting is. You know, this one is good in math. This one is good in science. This one is good in reading or writing. how can we now, allow our attentions to focus on putting them in activities that feed that area so it'll be easier for them to transition to fulfilling their purpose. Yeah. And then they will reproducibly do what God commanded Adam and Eve, is to be fruitful and multiply. Like-minded Christ followers who love God and who are going to fulfill the purpose and do it and reproduce it over and over again.
Yeah, come on.
Join us next week for part 2 on becoming a better family man.